so we're going to do now, we're going to multiply and divide fractions. We're going to do some quick, easy problems, then we'll get into some more difficult problems. Okay, so first we have this problem. Go ahead and write it down. And again, you always want to be estimating. Just like we estimated when we added and subtracted, we want to estimate when we multiply and divide as best as we can. Sometimes it'll get tricky, but we'll figure out then what to do. Okay, so 5/9 again is close to 1/2. And 3/35 is very close to 0, so anytime you multiply by 0, you get a 0. So this number, this answer that we have for the real problem is going to be a very, very small fraction. So if you don't get a very, very small fraction, something's wrong. So we go ahead and write it down, and then what you can do, you can reduce. Remember, we've talked about this before, but this 3 here and that 9 there is really like you had 3 9s if we use the commutative property of multiplication. So we always know we can reduce that to be 1 and 3. 3 goes in there once, 3 goes in the 9 3 times. So this time I just put the 1 here and then the 3 there. And same thing for the 5 and the 35. So we see that then I multiply going straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and then 3 times a 7 is 21. We don't need to find common denominators when we multiply or divide. So hopefully you'll remember that. And is that number is that fraction very close to 0? Yes, that would round to 0. Okay, next we have negative now. All right, so the main thing with when you have the negative signs is that it really doesn't change the answer in terms of just your estimating and all that, for multiplying and dividing as much as you just have to remember what the sign of the answer is at the end. Okay, so this is close to, if this was just regular 15/28, it'd be about a half, right? So we could just say negative a half. And then this is very close to 1. So negative a half times 1 is about negative 1/2. So my answer should be somewhere close to negative 1/2. All right, so I write it down and I do my cross reducing, however you want to say that, and it comes up to 18. 3 times 6 is 18 over 35, which is, and I forgot again to put my negative. So always you want to double check your work. So again, that's pretty close to a half. Okay? Next one. Now we have mixed numbers. So we're going to have, go ahead and copy this problem down. Going to estimate it. Negative 6 1/2 is about negative 7, and then negative 3 2/3 is about 4. Now, remember here what you want to think about is I really went higher. On both these, I went higher. And if I'm multiplying even higher numbers than what I really have, then my estimated answer is going to be really higher. So my answer might not be as close to that 28 as I have seen in the past. All right, so you go ahead, remember now with mixed numbers, you make them into improper fractions. You go, remember, forget the minus sign there, forget the negative sign. It's 6 times 2 plus the 1 be 13 halves. Put the negative back. And the same thing here, be negative 11 over 3. We can't reduce anywhere, so we have to multiply on out. When you multiply that, you'll see it's 143 over 6. Then we have to divide to get it back into a mixed number. So 6 into that, I figured out was 23 and 5/6. Now that was a little bit lower than my estimate, but I remember that my answer is not as close because we estimated high. So here our estimate would be higher than the actual answer, and that's okay, as long as you remember, I went pretty high, so my answer is going to be a little bit lower than that. Okay. All right, next one. Now we're going to come across dividing. Dividing fractions is probably one of the hardest concepts to really understand in your mind. So try to get some small, easy, simple examples to help you understand what really is going on when we divide by fractions. Okay, first of all, just think about 10 divided by 2. One way to think about it is that it really means, what they're really asking is, how many groups of 2 fit into 10? All right, well, that's kind of easy. That would be 5. I didn't put the answer up there, but we know the answer is 5. Okay, there's 5 groups of 2 that fit into 10. All right, now when you divide 10 divided by a half, it's the same thing. It means how many halves, how many groups of a half, if you want to call it a group, fit into 10. Well, that's like, if you think about money, how many 50 cents are there in $10? Well, we know in every $1 there's 2. So in $10, you just do 10 times the 20, 10 times the 2, and you get the 20. So that'd be 20 halves in 10. And the way that we've known then to work it out is just to go, you have 10 over 1, and instead of dividing now, we're going to multiply, and then we invert that. And you've heard, I'm sure, many times, you keep it, change it, or keep it, change it, flip it. Okay, and then that would be 20 over 1, 1, which equals 20. Okay, so let's think of another kind of simple example that maybe we can understand a little better. How many quarter-hour shows of Rugrats could you watch in 1 hour? Okay, if Rugrats is only for 15 minutes, how many quarter hours, how many 15-minute shows could you watch in 1 hour? How many could you watch in 3? Well, that's like asking, 1 divided by a fourth. How many groups of fourth, of 1/4? How many groups of a quarter of an hour is there in 1 hour? That's just like 1 times 4, because when you go through the same process, and you know there'd be 4 shows. You kind of know that already. Similarly, for 3 shows, for 3 hours, it'd be 3 times that, it'd be 12 shows. Okay, so maybe that'll help you to think of a simple example that may help you understand a little bit about what's really going on when you divide. Okay, so for division though, we still want to estimate first. And then, but that right there, this slide before that may help us realize what we're doing, so may help us estimate. Okay, you want to convert the fractions, proper, improper, yeah, you have to convert the fractions, proper, improper. You can't have any mixed fractions, mixed numbers, whenever you go into dividing or multiplying, honestly. You must keep the first fraction, you change the middle fraction, the division to multiplying, and you change the second fraction, you invert it, you flip it over, okay? So let's do some simple examples here. We have negative 5 2/3 divided by 1 1/2. You estimate first. That's close to negative 6 divided by 2. Well, how many groups of 2 are there in 6? Well, there's 3. In this case, it'd be negative 3 because negative divided by positive is negative. Okay, so you can do the work. You make that into 17/3, divide by 3/2, and then, only then, once you have fractions only, then is when you can keep, change, flip. You keep it, you change it, and you flip it. And you will do all the math, and you end up getting about negative 3 7/9, which is pretty close to our guess, our estimate. Not our guess, our estimate. Okay, next one. Go ahead and copy that down. Okay, then you estimate it. Well, that's about negative 2 divided by negative 6. Now, that's a little funny. If it helps you not to, you don't have to, when you estimate, you don't have to worry about the negative signs. You can just think, okay, how many groups of 2 in 6, I wrote that wrong. How many groups of 6 are in 2? That's what I meant to say. How many groups of 6 in 2? Well, there's no groups of 6 in 2. I mean, you can think about money. How many groups of $6 are in 2? Well, there's none. So it's going to be a very, very small number. It's a very, very small answer. Let's see what happens. You make them into improper fractions. You keep it, change it, flip it. You can't reduce anywhere. And it ends up being not negative, but positive, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Ends up being positive 9/34, which is a pretty small number. So that would be the answer. And that makes sense then, right? Sort of. Hopefully that'll help you a little bit. Okay, next one. All right, suppose you bought 10.5 gallons of paint in one large container. And if you wanted to pour the paint into half-gallon containers, how many half-gallon containers would you need? Okay, that's really what I'm asking. So it's a division, because you're trying to get equal groups. You're separating this big container into separate equal groups. That's division. So you have 10.5 divided by half. Okay, let's estimate first. Okay, 10.5 rounds to about 11 divided by half. Okay, well, what you're really asking is how many halves are in 11? Well, each one has 2, so it's really 2 times 11, 22. Let's see what happens. So go 10.5, make that into improper fraction, keep it, change it, flip it, and we get 21 over 1, which is 21, which is very close to our 22. Okay? That's our last one. Okay, suppose you have 1 dozen bagels, and you want to see how many people you can feed if you give each person 1/3 of a bagel. What about 1/2 of a bagel? Okay, let's do both those. We actually did this in class. I actually had the bagels and everything, so maybe we can bring some in. We'll see. If we have, so we're dividing, we're seeing how many equal parts. We're having 12 bagels, a dozen, divided by 1/3. How many thirds fit into 12? Well, let's estimate. Well, again, each bagel, then, you're going to be able to get 3 out of. So that's really like 3 times 12, which is 36. So let's do the math. 12 over 1 times, keep it, change it, flip it, and that's 36 people. It's exactly what we got. Or if we have 12 and we give everybody a half, we can feed 24 people. Okay? I'll see you next time.